Friends, welcome back to nrisamay. This is your host, Sri Hari Atluri. We are going to discuss a topic, for most of us it's very boring, but every boring topic is exciting for some geeks, like our today's guests and also listeners. This topic is genetically modified food and whether it is good or bad, both for our individual health and also society. Today we have Aruna Rodrigues. She's an environmentalist and chief petitioner in a PIL file in Supreme Court in 2005, opposing the introduction of GM foods in India. Devinder Sharma ji, he is the co-petitioner in the same case. He is a distinguished food and trade policy analyst and a trained agricultural scientist, an award-winning Indian journalist and a published author. We were supposed to have Dr. J.P. Garu. Because of health reasons, he could not join. He has impleaded to a petition to oppose the moratorium on GM food. Since he could not join, he sent Mr. Karthik Chandra, the head of research department for Lok Satta Party. Dr. P. Anand Kumar is also going to join. He is a well-known plant molecular biologist and biotechnologist. He is currently at National Research Center on plant biotechnology as a principal scientist. Welcome to you all.
Very good morning.
Friends, we'll have Aruna and Anand join in a couple of minutes, but we are going to start with Karthik Chandra and Devinder ji. So to begin with, I would like to ask Devinder ji, you are a co-petitioner in Supreme Court case asking the GM trials, field trials should be stopped. Could you please explain why the GM crop field trials should be stopped in India?
Well, genetically modified crops are basically, in the Indian parlance now, basically dented and painted, crops. And the idea behind it is to, in the name of saying that, we need to increase productivity, so therefore in the genetically modified crops, you need to ensure various environmental, benefits accruing out of it, drought resistant, salt resistant, and so on. And, all kinds of promises have been made. The basic idea being that this is a new technology which is going to be very helpful for countries' food security. Whereas my work, I have been following this, and I realize that it is neither helpful for food security nor is it healthy or would ensure that human health is taken care of, and also it is environmentally damaging. So on all accounts it fails, and I don't see any reason why people should be asked to take a risk when there is no problem with the other kinds of foods, non-GM foods that are available in the market. So I personally feel that this is a crop which is or a food which is not at all required. And so therefore we all decided to put up a petition before the Supreme Court in India, especially highlighting the health concerns. And I'm so glad that the Supreme Court has not only admitted it, but continues to take up the case, and I think that has been remarkable.
Okay. So you are saying there is not much benefit, or there is absolutely no benefit, but farmers should have a say on it, right? Whether if they don't see a benefit, then why would they go for it? So what is the negative side? Why should we not allow to have an option?
This argument. Can I go ahead or?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. This argument that farmers are the best judge, so let them take it up. I think we must realize that in today's world, there is no such thing as, as a customer or a consumer can decide as to what is good or bad. It is easily said, but it's not practical. Let me give you an example. The same farmers have been using chemical pesticides over the years. Now, those pesticides have turned out to be very harmful. It's harmful for the farmers, harmful for the environment, harmful for human health also. And the GM industry has been using the same argument, saying that these are the people, this kind of environmental damage has to be curtailed. So therefore, we need GM crops which will produce their own pesticides and will save pesticide usage. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is it was the farmers who have been using chemical pesticide all these years. and now you are trying to bring in another GM crop. They will be lost by it also because there's a marketing blitz by these companies, the agriculture scientists, the policymakers, the companies. They have all joined hands because there is money here. So they've all joined hands to promote a technology which is not wanted. So why are we doing it? Why do we leave it to farmers? Let's take another example, cigarette smoking. If the governments don't impose a ban across the world, I'm sure cigarette smoking will increase. But we all know it is harmful for health. Then why is the government stepping in? Why don't we leave it to markets to decide or to the consumer to decide whether cigarette smoking is good for you or not? I think the society must take a control over these technologies. The harmful things should be shunted out, and the good things only should be allowed to be in the market.
Okay, thank you, sir. I understand you are saying it's harmful, but I did not hear why it is harmful or how it is harmful.
I can add on with that, if you allow me.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it's harmful. It has been shown now that, all these years, scientists were trying to, keep it under wraps. The harmful impacts are not known. Nowhere in the world, let me tell you, have the scientists allowed research to be concluded or to be taken up which shows the negative impacts of this technology. And wherever the scientists, whosoever, few of them who dare to do that have been shunned out. There is a kind of a propaganda war by the scientists as well as by the policymakers against those scientists who have tried to tell us what are the harmful impacts. So the harmful impacts were shown by Arthur Pushjai in UK. They were shown by Miguel in America, and now lately Seralini has shown in France that how the rats have developed cancerous tumors in their bodies. Phenomenal. If you just see the growth, it's so frightening after doing the research trials, which went on for 2 years, which is the total lifespan of the rats, which means in the human lifespan, there are completely evidence now because rats, that's what we do. When we conduct a study for the human beings, we try it on the rats first. So rats have clearly demonstrated the dangerous impacts of this technology. Now, if that is visible, why are we doing it? And this is complete for the full 2 year of the rat's lifespan. The point I'm trying to make here is that nowhere in the world is money being available to conduct research to find out the negative impact. So the society will never know that. So this is a kind of a very clever move by the industry to keep it away from the people as to what harm their own technology can accrue to the masses. I think that is what has been established now beyond point. There are number of studies which show that.
Okay, excellent. Let me go to Karthik Chandra. He is the research head of Lok Satta from Hyderabad. Karthik, you heard about Devinder's point on why we should not have GM crops. Can you tell us why we should have? And because Lok Satta is one of the petitioners, or Lok Satta has implemented to stop the moratorium on GM crops.
Yes, Srihari, it is a pleasure. Srihari, with your permission, I would like to get back to the first question that you put to Devinderji. Should we or should we not ban the crop field trials of genetically modified crop varieties in India? In this respect, I think, unfortunately, there is a conflation of issues, and to an extent, there is a confusion of issues. What happened is we are trying to merge all these parallel issues together. And, for instance, we are trying to raise the issue of genetically modified food, whether it is safe or not for consumption by human beings or for cattle. Second issue is unfair trade, unethical practices, and other not undesirable commercial practices of MNCs selling genetically modified seeds in India. And thirdly, the regulatory process of approval of genetically modified crops through a due process of testing, including field trials. Unfortunately, all these issues have been clubbed together, and they were taken up before the Supreme Court. That is the reason why Lok Satta Party had to implead itself on behalf of farmers of India and on behalf of the Federation of Independent Farmers Association in Andhra Pradesh. What we did was, we tried to segregate these issues. So we need to take a rational, scientific, progressive, pro-technology and a modern view of this. Genetically modified technology has always been there since the start of agriculture. The only issue is whether it has been taken up in the form of hybrid, high-yielding varieties being generated through whether it is tissue culture or whether it is cross-pollination or selective breeding of high-yielding varieties, pest-resistant varieties, or the latest technologies of genetic engineering where DNA sequences or genes are spliced and inserted into plants, that too crossing the species or even the plant barriers or the kingdom barriers. Therefore, we need to segregate these issues together. Lok Satta Party, that is why unambiguously and unequivocally, it supports genetically modified technology. The issues of the regulatory process of approval, going through a due process of testing, safety testing, approval, and then releasing it into the market, that is a separate, specific issue. Because of lack of protocols or some undesirable elements in that protocol, we should not condemn the entire GM technology itself. That, I think, is the stance of Lok Satta.
Okay. Thank you, Karthik ji. We have Dr. P. Anand Kumar with us. I have given introduction before he joined itself. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, I think you joined while Devinder Sharma was talking. One of the points raised by Devinder ji is that the research did not conclude. The research to say whether it's actually good for human or cattle consumption, the GM crop is good or not, has not concluded because of the lot of issues that the systematic issues that were put together. You are a scientist, and could you tell us what research is the scientist doing, and whether is there any conclusion to say whether the GM crop is good or not?
Yeah, thank you. I have been researching on GM crops for the past 2 decades in National Research Center for Plant Biotechnology located in New Delhi. I have a few questions that are focus of the debate in front of me. So,
Sir, Anandji, if you don't mind, could you please talk a little louder?
Oh, yeah, okay. I have a few questions in front of me that are the focus of the debate. So I would like to make a few general statements before I go into the specifics. We all know that the population of India is going to reach the 1.8 billion mark by the year 2050. And this would make the food, nutritional and environmental security of the country a major issue. And food production has to be doubled to meet the demands of the increasing population. And we have to do this as against increasing urbanization. We are losing cultivated land to the urban areas. The soils are getting eroded, the lands are getting salinized, the water resources are getting depleted, the energy resources are vanishing, and on top of everything, the global climate change is knocking our doors. So, biotechnology and especially GM crops offer a very, very powerful, eco-friendly and sustainable option to meet the challenges that are ahead of us. And in addition to some of these problems I mentioned, we have some very, very specific limitations in our country. For instance, developing countries face the problems of malnutrition, undernourishment, micronutrient deficiencies, anemia in our women and children, and also very strict consumer preferences. So in this respect, GM crops and biotechnology promise more food, better quality food, safer food, healthy foods, and tailor-made foods required for our specific needs. So we cannot simply afford to ban GM crop field trials as has been demanded by certain sections of the population. And to answer the second question, that is GM food safe for human consumption? We are all aware that GM foods have been around for more than 17 years. GM crops are being cultivated in 29 countries around the globe now. In the year 2011, 160 million hectares of GM crops have been cultivated. And in addition to the fiber crop, that is cotton, we have 7 food crops. And these 7 food crops, I am sure most of you know: canola, corn, soybean, sugar beet, papaya, squash, watermelon, and so on. And in the past 17 years, there hasn't been any single instance of any of these foods or crops have made an adverse impact on human health or animal health or biodiversity or environment in general. There is absolutely no substantiated evidence to say that GM foods are not safe for human consumption.
Anand Kumar ji, let me ask you one quick question. Is there a proof otherwise? Is there a proof that to say that it is safe? Because one of the questions I am getting from nrisamay.com from Samba Kolusu, he's asking that scientists have failed to predict the side effects of the pesticides at the beginning, but we all know that pesticides are bad for our health now, but the same scientists were not able to predict at that point. So what is the proof that in long term there is no side effects because of the genetically modified food?
Yeah. In this particular instance, we are dealing with a very, very precise and specific technology, and the genetic manipulation of plants is relatively more safe than conventional plant breeding. Protoplast hybridization, which has given rise to some crop genotypes we have cultivated. Interspecific hybridization, intergeneric hybridization, genotypes produced through chemical-induced mutagenesis, and varieties produced through radiation-induced mutagenesis. And there is abundant and ample evidence to show that genetically modified varieties are much, much less disturbed than a conventionally bred variety or a variety produced by any of these methods I listed. Not only that, this is such a precise technology that we introduce a single gene or maybe a couple of genes or 3 genes, the characters of which are well known, the properties of the proteins are well known, and the mechanism of enzyme action is well known, and the safety of which is also well known. But at the same time, when you introduce a foreign gene into plant genome, there could be some unintended, inadvertent effects that may lead to some putative harmful effect. To rule out these harmful effects, the genetically manipulated foods or modified foods are subjected to a plethora of tests encompassing toxicity, allergenicity, and many other environmental risk assessment procedures. And we have a set of internationally accepted guidelines for testing of GM foods, known as Codex Alimentarius. There is a subcommission overseen by World Health Organization and Food and Agriculture Organization, which have codified these tests of toxicity, allergenicity, and so on. and 2 dozens of genetically modified crop events that have been there in environment as of now for the past 17, 18 years have all very thoroughly, stringently undergone these procedures and tests. And in none of the commercially available, environmentally available GM events, adverse effects have been shown.
Sir, Anand Kumar ji, let me interject for a quick second. We have Aruna Rodrigues with us. Welcome to the show, Aruna ji.
Thank you. Who am I speaking to?
This is Srihari, the host of the show.
Yes. Hi, Srihari.
Hi.
Could you, first of all, just tell me who all are part of this conference call?
So this is Dr. You just listened to Dr. P. Anand Kumar. He's a scientist.
Yes,
and,
but who else is on this conference call?
And we also have Devinder Sharma. We also have Devinder Sharma ji. And Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan, he could not join. So we have Karthik Chandra. He's from Lok Satta. And he's the head of the research department for them. So we are 4 of us here.
Okay.
So Arunaji, I would like to ask you, you listened to Dr. P. Anand Kumar ji, and he is saying that it's not proved that it is harmful. But you have been involved in this for a long time, and you have argued that the GM crop could be one of the reasons for the cancer and other reasons. Can you please tell us your perspective on this issue? Why this?
I think I would like to do this via a test case which has happened in the last few years in India, and that is BT brinjal. Now, that was the first BT crop that was food crop that was actually approved by the apex regulator for commercialization. That decision was reversed. But the interesting thing is that when the biosafety data was put up in the Supreme Court, and let me put this very clearly, that it took them 16 months to comply with the court's directive to put the data up. They were very reluctant to do this. When they finally put the data up, we got it appraised by a sleuth of international scientists, eminent, independent, UN advisors, people like Ando, Jack Heinemann, Schubert, Arpat Pusai, just to name a few. Now, all of them, barring none, find that tests that were claimed to have been done were not done. The molecular characterization, by the way, Mr. Anand Kumar talks of the preciseness of GE techniques. It's not precise at all. I think every known scientist who is independent and not involved in any way with a conflict of interest, even Monsanto, some of their vice presidents have accepted that this is not a precise technology at all. And this is the problem. The problem is that it leads to unintended effects. The reason why it leads to unintended effects is precisely because it is not precise. Now let me get back to BT brinjal. All of these scientists find a cover-up. They find fraud because tests that were claimed to have been done were not done. This starts from the protocols at the molecular characterization, where you look at the gene, you look at the construct, you see where it has gone. It just wasn't done at a very fundamental and basic level. You then go to animal feeding studies. Monsanto's 90-day tests were about the longest on the rat feeding studies. There are no long-term feeding studies. So to claim that GM genetically engineered crops are safe, I'm afraid, is not based on anything that is really factual. The factual issue is that these crops have not been tested in rigorous protocols. Of course, the interesting thing, talking about rigor and lack of a conflict of interest, we've just had the Sapari Committee report, which is all about a desi gene, cotton gene, being put into a variety. Well, this BT cotton gene turned out to have a Monsanto gene in it. And do you know that it was passed for regulatory approval without even looking at this IPR that was being infringed? The Sapari Committee has not minced its words at all. They've talked of a basic lack of ethic. They've talked of incompetence. They have talked of a lack of expertise. They have been scathing. And the fact is that we have said all of these things on BT brinjal, and this report vindicates us. We have said that BT brinjal dossier was just not looked at with any kind of rigor. In fact, it was not possible. Possibly the raw data was not even looked at, because we know from the findings when the EC2, which is the expert committee on BT brinjal, writes to one of the top animal feeding studies experts, Seralini, and says, look, tell us, why do you call this BT gene a chimeric gene? Now, chimeric is a fusion gene. So, Seralini was a little puzzled. He wrote back and said, I'm not calling it a chimeric gene. Please look at page 32 or para 32, Monsanto. They call it a chimeric gene. So, this really does not bear scrutiny. We are in a very, very bad situation in India, where we have regulators who have the most deep conflict of interest. They're complicit. There's no rigor. The BT brinjal dossier proves this. Ando, in his appraisal of BT brinjal, and I'm talking of the environmental appraisal, we have 2,500 wild varieties in India. There's no question that these would be contaminated. Mr. Anand Kumar says there is no proof of contamination. Well, there is. If you give me an opportunity a little later, I will go through all of that. Out of 37 environmental tests that they should have done, 36 were not done. So, I could go on and on and on. The fact is, we don't have any kind of regulation. We are not alone in this. The U.S. Regulatory oversight is virtually nil, and we follow that like little puppies. And that's all I can say. We are a poodle to the United States and to Monsanto.
Okay. Thank you, Aruna ji. I would like to ask next question to Devinder Sharma ji. This question comes from Yashwant in Andhra Pradesh. So he's asking if GM is bad. He's not talking about food this time, but fiber crop, which is cotton. Then why are so many farmers forming queues in front of these shops for the GM seed, cotton seed, which is BT cotton?
Well, before I answer this, if you allow me, I'd like to answer another of the important questions that was raised by Anand Kumar and also by Mr. Karthik. And that pertains to the production problem, and the argument therefore is that, we have 7 billion people on the planet today, and the population is going to go up to 9 billion in the year 2050. So we need to produce more, so therefore we need genetically modified crops. Now the same argument also stretches to India. So let me clarify here that yes, we have 7 billion people, but how much food do we produce in the world today? That's a big question. I looked at the data for 2012, the year which had just ended. USDA has come out with a report on it, the total world production of food grains. It tells us that today, in 2012, the food that was produced was good enough to feed 13 billion people with 1 pound a day. That's the kind of food that is available. So we are talking of 9 billion population in the year 2050. We already produce food which is good enough for 13 billion people, which means it runs into the 22nd century. We don't have to worry the kind of food that we produce. In terms of calories, the average calorie requirement of a human body, let's say average for the world, should be around 2,400 to 2,500. What is available today is about 4,500 calories per capita. So there is the shortage of food. And also, if you have seen a report which has just come out 3-4 days back from UK, it tells us that 30 to 50% of the food is being wasted. Now, which means, we produce food for 13 billion people, and that is being met by that requirement of 13 billion people is being met by just 50% of the food we produce, because 50% is going waste. So if we were to put all our energies on saving food and distributing it, let me tell you, we have no problem till the end of this century. Now, this is the problem being created by agriculture scientists and the companies, because they have a job to do. They have nothing else to do. So they want to justify by saying we need to improve productivity. But what is the need to improve productivity of waste production when you already produce food for almost double the population? That's the question. Now look at India. In India, we have 320 million people who go to bed hungry every night. It's a shame that 1/3 of the world's hungry should be living in a country like India. And is there a shortage of food in India? In June, we had 82.3 million tons of surplus with us. Even today, we have a surplus of 66 million tons of food grains with us. What we have done in the process between June to December is that we have exported, all our efforts are to export food, not to distribute among the poor. And then we are saying that, we have hungry people in India, so we need to feed them. Your intention is not to feed the hungry. In fact, the surplus that we have got is called hunger surplus, because you are depriving the hungry of the food that you produce, and that you want to export. What a remarkable development process India has got. Now, having said that, what I'm trying to say is that these agriculture scientists are taking us on an illusory path of saying that we need to increase production. We don't need to increase production. We need to put our energies to save and to distribute that food. And in that bargain, let me also tell you, there will be less of global warming that we talked about. There will be less of damage. We will not be doing any more damage to environment, pesticides, water, all those kinds of things that we hear about. So I think the best way is to put your energies there. But then the problem there is that, there is no money there. Monsanto cannot make money. Cargill will not be able to make money. And so even the agriculture institutes will be running out of jobs because they have nothing else to do. Now, why I'm saying this is because the problem is somewhere else, and we are looking for a solution somewhere else. I don't think that's the way forward. Now, the other question that your listener has asked, I think is very important. In the case of cotton, let's be very clear. India has hybrid cotton, which is being promoted all over. And I am not a very supporter of hybrid also. But let's say the gene that has been inserted, BT gene, has gone into the hybrid crop. Now that hybrid crop becomes then BT cotton. Now that seed is, obviously you have to replace that seed every year. So what these scientists and plus these companies have joined hands here, very cleverly they have ensured that the non-GM seed, non-BT cotton seed disappears from the market. I've gone around the country, I've seen farmers, companies have gone to the farmers and said, if whatever seed, non-GM seed you have with you, please give me, I'll take it from you, I'll give you the money. They have been paid money. A number of examples I've given in a number of my writings. This is how they have gone across the country, collected the non-GM seed. Now what is left in the market is only BT cotton seed. So the poor farmer has no choice. It's a Hobson choice for him. He has to take on, accept BT cotton. The other thing is why farmers are doing it. It is the propaganda. The propaganda machinery has been so active all over that, in this BT cotton case, even the governments have joined hands. Punjab government itself, the chief minister was promoting BT cotton. And now we have found out that in this year, particularly in Maharashtra, there is a 40% shortfall in cotton production and 90% of the area is under BT cotton, which means the BT cotton has failed in Maharashtra. But, it is the state government which is being asked to pay compensation to the farmers. I wonder why is Monsanto and the other companies not being asked to compensate the farmers, because it's because of their seed the crop has failed. So they should be asked to make the compensation. But instead we are asking the government, which means taxpayers' money again is going to there where it should have been actually been compensated by the companies. So in India, It is the propaganda machinery plus these actions that the companies and the government took very cleverly to ensure that the non-BT seed is out of the market that has actually pushed BT cotton into on a scale that we all know more than 92% area is under BT cotton.
Okay, thank you, Devinder ji. I would like to go to Karthik Chandra because we know Lok Satta has been championing for farmers in various areas. Now, the BT cotton is, I think it's widely accepted that it has failed, especially in areas like Maharashtra where there's not a lot of rain. Now, but that's not what it has been said just a couple of years ago. And also, if you take the overall production also, it looks like the BT cotton has not given as much yield as it has promised even in the most rain-fed areas. Could you tell your perspective on this one?
Sure, I have to refute that. We have to look at the information and we have to look at the data objectively. Srihari, BT cotton has revolutionized Indian agriculture. That is a fact we have to accept. As our eminent colleague Devinder ji has pointed out, more than 90% of the total acreage under cotton production in India uses BT cotton. To attribute it entirely to hype or marketing or the complicity of the government departments and not one but a multitude of government departments and independent scientific experts and agricultural experts in collaboration with some private individuals or companies, I think would be completely incorrect. In India, we developed long staple hybrid cotton in 1970s. After that, we faced severe pest attack because of bollworm infestation. Our pesticides could not solve the problem. Only thanks to the intervention in the form of BT cotton, we managed to overcome this problem. Now India is the second largest producer of cotton in the world. We are slated to overtake China in the next couple of years. I think this achievement should not be underestimated. Let me get back to a couple of more important questions. The same agricultural scientists whose motives are being questioned right now, the same government and the government institutes and independent agencies whose role is being questioned right now by a couple of our people, they were the ones who championed green revolution in the earlier part of our 20th century. So using chemical pesticides actually helped us achieve food security. Now the fact is every new technology has some deleterious effects and some harmful side effects also. But because there might be some putative negative effects, simply to refute the entire genetically modified technology itself is akin to throwing the baby with the bathwater. Then third issue.
Karthik, let me just ask a quick question. You said
sure.
The yield has increased and we are the second largest, but at the same time I think we have to look at the area under which the cotton has been cultivated, which has increased tremendously. So it's not. It could not just be the yield per hectare that has increased, right?
Could you repeat your question, please? Your voice is breaking.
The area under which the cotton has been cultivated has increased multifold in the last couple of decades. So the increase in the yield, total yield, could be because of the increase in the area, right?
That could also be a contributing factor. At the same time, we have to understand, you and I have the luxury of discussing cotton farming sitting in more comfortable environment. However, a cotton farmer, they do not have the luxury. We have to understand that they will plant cotton only if they have the better returns assured for it. They would not be doing it if returns and yields were not assured because of BT cotton. They would have moved on to other crops also. That is what happens in the upland areas of Telangana where we visited, of Andhra Pradesh, including Telangana where we had visited.
Okay, I'm getting a question from Sripal. This is on the chat on nrisamay.com. The question is the bananas in USA, the Chiquita bananas in USA, are much bigger in size, but they're not as tasty as Indian bananas. Then cilantro or coriander, it also is not very tasty. So he's asking, let me see, this where are we planning to move towards GP crops in next 5 to 10 years? So he's saying basically whatever the food we are getting is not as tasty as the organic food we used to eat in India. Quick response.
Sure, Srihari, I think we have to be very careful here. Are we talking about some select breeds? Are we talking about genetic diversity? Are we talking about organic farming? Are we talking about biopesticides? Or are we talking about genetically modified technology, which has a clear definition, which the Parliament of India's Committee on Agriculture has defined in very categorical terms? So we cannot conflate issues together, confuse several issues, and then question everything. I admire and appreciate the concern of Mr. Sripal if he finds the taste of Chiquita bananas not akin to the taste of the native varieties of bananas. They are always welcome, but that is not genetically modified technology, or cilantro probably is not facing genetically modified technology. Srihari, with your permission, I'll take up one more question. I surely hope Devinder ji is not making the point that the entire problem of malnutrition or even food security has been solved. Or the current production probably is being compared to future need. Our food habits are changing. Our consumption patterns are changing. The world climate is changing. Therefore, the soil productivity is changing. Therefore, using the current or last year's statistics and then claim that for the next 100 years, food security and malnutrition problems have been solved, I think is simply unjustified and unfair, quite honestly.
No, let me answer that.
I would like to go to Dr. Anand Kumar.
So can I answer this question first?
Okay, please, quickly if you may, then I'll go to Anand.
Yeah. So this is not my the statistics that I quoted. I'm quoting the U.S. Department of Agriculture for the year which has just ended, 2012. They have on their own estimates show that the food that the world produces is good enough for 13 billion people. So that is their estimate, and that's what I'm trying to say, that we produce enough food. The problem is not of production, the problem is of access and distribution. And to say that, in 2050 you will have problems, that is just also an analysis. We don't know whether they would be or not, but the way the economic policies are being designed, I'm sure they would like to create a problem, because that's how the economic growth takes place. Economic growth, whatever you sell, whether it's scrap or whatever, is adds on to economic growth, and the world is very happy. But I think what is more important here is to ensure that we waste 50% food. We have food which is in surplus. Why can't we put it to judicious use? Why can't we put our energies there rather than hankering over a technology which is not wanted, which is risky, which is damaging to the environment and to the human beings? That's the argument I'm trying to make, sir.
Great, sir. Let me go to Dr. Anand Kumar.
Srihari.
Anand Kumar ji.
May I?
Thank you. Actually, the food surplus we talk about...
Sir, let me ask you a different question. I want to move on to the next topic. Give me 1 second. I'll ask you a question to Anand Kumar ji. Once the GM food has been used in a field, suppose whether it's cotton or it's brinjal or whatever it is, then you cannot go back to organic food. Is that true? Because once you use, there is always a seed, and then you can never claim that you are going organic food again. Sir, Anand Kumar ji.
More organic than organic foods that exist today. As I mentioned earlier...
Sir, your voice is very low.
Or it is not nutritional security, it is the environmental security of the globe in the coming centuries. And the environmental security of the globe can be safeguarded only by genetically modified crops. And genetically modified crops have absolutely no conflict with organic farming. Genetically modified crops and organic farming have the same objectives and same aims and same goals. And biotech food is substantially equivalent to the counterpart normal foods. And as long as you do not use pesticides, fungicides, or any other chemicals of harmful nature, because of cultivating GM food crops, it becomes organic. That's what I wanted to add to what Dr. Sharma said. It's not the amount or quantum of food available. It is the specific problems Indians are facing, which can be addressed only by biotech crops. Malnutrition, undernourishment, nutrient deficiencies, anemia in women and children, and so on. And at the same time, we have to protect our land, our water, our environment. We have to prevent soil erosion. And we have to use less water to produce the equal amount of food in future. Less energy to produce the equal amount of food in future. And less nitrogen to produce the equal amount of food in future. And that is possible only by genetic engineering. And I also address the concern of Arunaji. Basically, I have mentioned right at the beginning, when you compare conventional plant breeding or chemical mutagenesis or radiation-induced mutagenesis, genetic manipulation is much, much more precise because you know what you are doing. And you are not disturbing the genomes as you have been doing in conventional breeding. And there is any amount of literature now to show that by genetic manipulation, the least minimum disturbance is caused in the genomes. And now we have powerful techniques of introducing a foreign gene in plant genome exactly at the location where you want. That means whatever unintended, inadvertent effects which we might have experienced earlier can also be taken care of in future. That is what is called gene targeting. You choose the location where you want to put the foreign gene. So that is why it is precision science, precision agriculture, and precision technology.
Sir, my question was, thanks for answering that. I would like to go to Arunaji next, but I want to ask one more question. So when the question is also coming from Raghuram Tadimalla, he is from Atlanta. So he is saying once you grow the GM crop, then the seed that comes from that crop, can that be used as a seed or not, is one part of the question. And next part of the question is, the GM, once you cultivate a GM crop, can you go back to organic crop in the same field or not? So it's a not reversible, irreversible process. Is that true?
Okay. There are two questions basically in what you put to me. One is whether you can use or reuse the seed you save from the crop that you have grown. If it is a GM variety, the seed can be used without any problem. It will carry the same character, same trait, unsegregated into the next progeny. But if it is a hybrid which you cultivated, the seed you get from a hybrid get segregated into two different sections. One section will have foreign gene, the other section will not have foreign gene. So if you plant that seed, the crop will be totally heterogeneous and you get confused and you also lose the benefit you are supposed to get from GM. That is the reason the companies, the corporate companies or multinational companies, they introduce the foreign trait into a hybrid so that the farmers are compelled in a way to go to the trader year after year. As far as the organic question is concerned, I have already answered. The biotech crops are similar to organics because here you are not employing any exogenous application of chemicals or fungicides or any other harmful chemicals. For example, the organic agriculture in Western countries has been using BT spray formulations to protect the insects. It is the same BT that is expressed inside the plant system now in a biotech way. It's It's only the method that has varied. You spray on one hand, and now you have a more powerful method of expressing the same Bt inside the plant system. So that way, biotech or Bt corn or Bt cotton or Bt rice or whatever can also be interpreted as organic, as long as it is substantially equivalent to the normal cotton or normal rice or normal maize or whatever.
Okay, thank you, sir. I would like to go to Arunaji to respond, but before that, a very short announcement that nrisamay is an online radio which has been running for the last 2 years, bringing similar debates and inspirational stories. We are a non-profit, independent community organization. What that means is we don't have any advertisements, as you have noticed, and we only run on the donations from listeners like you. So please keep that in mind, and we are doing a lot of good work. You can go to the website. Arunaji, could you please respond to, I know you were trying to answer to the earlier question also.
Yes, Mr. Srihari, there are a number of important issues which have been raised, and I would like to first of all respond to this issue of Bt cotton and its yield and the area, because this must be clarified. I'd like to say a few things. First of all, as everyone has agreed, it is hybrids that are being used in India. Now, to separate the hybrid yield from Bt cotton, which has no intrinsic yield gain, this is something that must be very, very clearly articulated. Nowhere in the world are the claims for Bt cotton like they are for India. Now, the Central Institute of Cotton Research, which is the premier institute in this country, and looking at the statistics from two sources, both of which belie what is being said by Mr. Anand Kumar, that the yields are increasing. I'm afraid the yields haven't increased. They are leveling off at 500 kilos per hectare. These are yields that were achieved before the Bt cotton era by non-Bt crops as well. Number two, in no other country is there the kind of gain that these people are talking about. Now, there's one thing that they didn't do, and it's very interesting that they did not do it, and I'm talking about the regulator. There was no post-market monitoring of Bt cotton instituted in India. We introduced this 10 years ago. No attempt has been made, or no attempt was made to do a continuous monitoring, nor was an attempt made to put down what you call a control. If you had put the nearest isogenic line in controls in different parts of the country and then compared what was going on, we would have a reference point. In the absence of these reference points, you can make a lot of tall claims. There are problems with soil toxicity. There are problems across the board. There is a reduction in the gene pool. We've got all of this, and this is documented. We know it. The directors in the Central Institute of Cotton Research admit it. We've got resistance coming in. There is a leveling off of yield. It's stagnating for the last 4 years. I repeat, at around 500 kilos per hectare. Now, the point is that we just don't have enough years to really evaluate this crop. So it would be much wiser and a lot more honest if the regulator, as well as the pro-industry people, stop trumpeting all of this and we just hold our horses and see what happens. But in the meanwhile, we do know that there are certain negatives. We know that Bt cotton does not do well in rain-fed areas. We've got Vidarbha. We've got other areas where it is rain-fed and we've had crop failures. We've got insect shifts. So, we really should not be talking too much about Bt cotton in the way Monsanto and the regulators would like to talk about it. We don't have the evidence for that. The evidence is pointing in the opposite direction. Now that's number one. Number two, very, very quickly, Mr. Anand Kumar is making claim after claim which is not substantiated. Let me say that both BT and HT crops are pesticidal crops. They have the pesticide internally. In terms of HT crops, the experience in the United States, which is the only country that really gathers these statistics and where we've had 20 years of commercialization of herbicide-tolerant crops, the amount of cumulative pesticide increase has been 174 million kilos of herbicide. So this claim that it's going down and that it's the same as organic farming, that's pretty scandalous actually. That's a claim that cannot be substantiated. These are all pesticidal crops and they should be tested as pesticidal crops. Now, is there any other? These are the two things I wanted to pick up from our colleagues who are in this conference. If there's another question you need to ask, then I will address that.
Okay, thank you, Arunaji. I would like to ask Devinder Sharma ji. We have Eddie Smith and Chaitanya asking questions about, I think, the health concerns. They are saying in US, a lot of people eat GM food every single day, and they are saying there is no side effect is basically what they are saying. Could you please comment on that?
This is a common argument of the industry all these years that, in America, people are eating the GM food, so there is no problem. So why are you trying to stop it across the world? Why there are health scares being raised? This is equally on the same line as what Anand Kumar ji has talked about various issues where he clubs organics with genetically modified, calling it the same. I'm very shocked when distinguished scientists or senior scientists start speaking the language of the corporates. I thought the scientists should have the courage to stand up and question what the corporates are telling them to do, or even what the political parties are telling them to do. That is what is the objective of science. But today, science has become subservient to the corporates, and that's quite evident the way Anand Kumar ji talked about, organic and no difference between organic and genetically modified crops or foods. I am shocked, in fact, to hear this argument. In fact, some years back, America wanted to bring in this kind of a clause. They had brought it in a policy where they said that organic is, genetically modified crops are organic, and so there should be no differentiation, in the cultivation practices and so on and so forth. And then they put it on the website. There was such an uproar from the masses. They received more than 200,000 hits, and as a result of which the U.S. Department of Agriculture had to withdraw that. And let's be very clear that it was under public pressure that the U.S. Department of Agriculture had to withdraw that comparison that they tried to make with organic. And I have never seen Anand Kumar or his brand of team of scientists ever singing praises for organic crops. Why is it only when it comes to genetically modified that they are very concerned or very, very excited about the potential of organics? But otherwise, I have always said, and I think this is true for Mr. Karthik should also learn from here, that in Andhra Pradesh, the right model is nothing. You have 35 lakh acres under non-pesticide management. You get my point? No pesticides are being sprayed, and yet the yields are going up, and the environment has become much safer. The food security has increased. The household income has increased, and this is quite evident. Even the Myanmar leader, Madam Sue, has gone there to see that kind of a farming system. Now that the state itself now wants to raise that area from 35 lakh acres to 100 lakh acres by another year or so. Now that's the kind of model of agriculture that the world needs, not the genetically modified system. Now you're coming back to your question, sir. In America, only 2 days back, there was a statement that Americans are they have the shorter lifespan and they are the most sick people in the rich countries. And this has only appeared only 2 days back. if we have seen this statement, it is quite evident that since 1994-95, whenever the genetically modified foods began, I think there is no scientific evidence for this, but there is definitely something which is visible for us, circumstantial evidence which shows that Americans are unhealthy, Americans are having a short lifespan. It is because of the food they eat. There are also evidence in America which tells us that dementia, for instance, has increased 90% over these years. And there are other kinds of allergies, hypertension, and so on and so forth, which have also, the rate has been stupendous. But the point I made earlier, and I repeat here again, there has been only one human clinical trial allowed so far. Why is the industry shying or ensuring that there are no human clinical trials held to know the harmful impacts of these crops? And that is what I said, even in the one experiment that America did on monarch butterflies by the Cornell University, the monarch butterfly experiment, which was run down by the entire gang of scientists who are on the bandwagon of the industry, actually costed $2 million to the university. Now, which university has $2 million to spend to know the harmful impacts of this research? So what is happening is that the funding today is curtailed everywhere in the world. Universities have no funds to do research. It's only the companies that they provide money, they can do research. So they only do one kind of research. They never do the harmful to know what harmful impacts it can generate. So Americans would never know that. But people in America are becoming aware. That is why in California, you had this referendum, which of course we know multinational companies pumped in about how many $1 million to ensure that fails, is an indication that the multinationals are now coming under attack from the American citizens also, because they now realize that these crops were, whatever they've been promised was not true and not correct.
Right. You were talking about the Prop 37 where in California, yes, which was eventually defeated, but there's an
yes,
estimate that tens of millions were pumped in last 2 days before the election. So
yes, we all know that. Yeah.
So because we have two sides and this is a debate, I think there is no fair way to end this. To give last word to somebody, but I will go to based on how much talk time. Yes, please
Mr.
go ahead.
Mr. Srihari, may I just interject here, please? It's quite important. We're talking of unintended effects. We're talking about there no proof in America which has been eating GM foods for so long. These are very unscientific statements. Let me put it this way, that if a product is not labeled, as Devinder has been saying, and they are fighting labeling, that itself is a story. If a product is not labeled, you take something like an allergy. It is devilishly difficult to pin down an allergy even if you've got labels. If you've got no labels, what public health doctors are going to be able to trace anything? So to say that the Americans have been eating GM foods for 20 years and there is any proof of any adverse effect, I'm afraid is really pie in the sky. It's not based on any scientific finding at all. But it is impossible to predict the products, enzymes, or regulatory genes which are mutated during the transformation process. These are things which come from David Schubert. They come from top scientists. Everybody talks about it. We talk of Codex. Codex talks of unintended effects and therefore wants testing to be able to determine what these might be. I just want to make these points. We shouldn't talk so loosely when you don't have labeling, where you can't pin down anything because you don't know what the ingredients are. No public health doctors can do any kind of statistical research, follow through what the public at large are eating because they don't know. It's as simple as that. And in any case, Americans eat highly processed forms of GM foods. It's corn oil or it's soya oil, and it's in processed foods. It is not in vast quantities as these people make out to be. I think we've got to be very, very clear and very honest about these kind of claims. You can't back up what Mr. Anand Kumar is saying, not by any means of analysis or science or public health.
Okay, thank you for that perspective, Arunaji. I would like to end the show with, but I'll give you a chance to Karthik Chandra, just because of the amount of time each guest has spoken. But friends, if you have missed any part of the show, or you did not get it enough, which is hard to believe, but you can go to youtube.com/nrisamay. We will have this show recorded, and also all the previous shows there, so you can watch any of them, and click on subscribe button so you automatically get an email whenever there is a recording available. So Karthik Chandra, you have 2 or 3 minutes.
Thank you, Srihari. I would like to make a couple of very brief points, very short points. Number one, the Supreme Court has not accepted the demand of Aruna Rodrigues ji and Devinder ji to impose a moratorium as recommended by the interim report of the Technical Expert Committee on GM crops. Therefore, there is no moratorium on field trial of GM crops right now in India. That is number one. Therefore, we have to take it up very seriously. Number two, in India, the debate about GM crops is actually a confusion and a conflation of several issues, which involve the GM crop safety itself, which is a separate matter, independent matter, which involves the regulatory bodies functioning. It is a separate matter. Third issue is that of scientific evidence and independent testing and verification of evidence. And lastly, it is about the practices, unethical and illegal practices of some companies which go against the ethics of business in India. So to combine these all together and then condemn genetically modified food technology itself is, I think, like cutting off the nose to spite the face. I think India will be worse off if we reject the progress and if we reject modern technology. Let us take the best elements of human progress. Let us take the best elements of genetically modified technology. The GM foods are here to stay. We cannot roll the clock back. What we have to do is look at the evidence, look at the Indian requirements, in the unique Indian requirements. We have a vigilant media in the form of people like Aruna Rodrigues and Devinder ji. We have very capable scientific setup in India, people like Dr. Anand Kumar, and we have excellent judiciary and government institutions. No doubt all of us have to improve. But given these conditions, let us take this up as a challenge to India. Let us use GM to solve our needs of malnutrition and food poverty, and even improve our yields in agriculture. Indian agriculture is in a great distress. We have to use GM to improve the situation. I think if we do it positively, carefully, and with a modern outlook, not in a negative, rejecting outlook, then I think India will do much better in the coming days.
All right. I would like to thank all our guests, Karthik Chandra, Devinder Sharma ji, Aruna Rodrigues ji, and Dr. P. Anand Kumar ji. Thank you for spending your time. I know it's very late in the night, but you all patiently answered the questions. And folks, this is it from us today, and we'll be back tomorrow with another incredible show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.